everybody, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this Halo Spiral Bracelet. Remember, if you need any materials that were just listed, check out below me in the video in the description to get the links to purchase from us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as .eu. So to get started, I have some .006 wildfire beading thread in the gray color, and I am using that because you'll see a tiny little bit with the halos and we want to keep that to kind of be the same color. I have a stop bead on that 5 feet of thread, and I'm adding on to my thread and needle two of my 11 O's in the silver color, then followed by my pattern of my SuperDuos, and I'm using the Aztec gold color. So I have 4 of the SuperDuos with the 2 seed beads between each. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring this into our tubular form by starting at that stop bead and going back through the first 2 seed beads as well as the first hole of the first SuperDuo bead. That's going to create a little bit of a loop. Make sure that it goes right down next to that stop bead. We're going to continue now. We're going to be always adding 4 of our SuperDuos with each row. After each time around, you're going to do what's called a step up. We're going to step up from the bottom hole, or the hole that's already used of the SuperDuo, to the outer hole, or the second hole around. We're going to do a couple stitches before we start to put in our secondary halo color. You're going to add a new SuperDuo, sew through the second hole of the next SuperDuo in line from that baseline of 4 SuperDuos. Again, I'm going to do this a total of 4 times, which is going to get the second row of my peyote stitch. So I'm adding in one, and you can see I'm not pulling tight yet because I'm just showing you how I'm doing it. You can see all that thread exposed. As I go in and add the 4th one, I'm going back through the first hole that my thread was coming out of, as well as through the first hole of the first SuperDuo that was added in this second row. Give a nice tight pull at this point and establish kind of that tubular shape. We're going to do another step up, but now what you're going to see is you're going to see the 4 new beads kind of popping out there to the side. Those seed beads, when you turn it over, should create like a little loop right there at that stop bead. We're going to step up from that bottom hole to the top hole of the SuperDuo. Add in 4 more SuperDuos. If you're not sure when to do the step up, what you can do is pre-lay out your SuperDuos in groups of 4. This will become handy, especially when you get to the point that we're adding the halos in and our alternate color. So you can see I'm just sewing around now, picking up that second hole of the second row of SuperDuos, and as I add in my 4th one for this row, I'm going to sew back through the first one that my thread was coming out of, as well as the first one that I just added on this row of the 3rd grouping of my SuperDuos. Give a nice tight pull so you don't see a lot of extra thread in there. You will see just a tiny bit. That's the nature of most tubular peyote. Stepping up again then, we'll do 1 more rotation of our gold, and then we'll get ready to add in our halo bead with it. To add in our halo bead with it, it's going to make it spiral around, and we want to have some 15 O's ready. I have some Duracoat Galvanized gold right underneath me that we'll be using as we do our next addition. After you have your 4 beads on, just like you're adding another one, go ahead and go through the first bead that the thread was coming out of, and then the first bead on this 4th row. Give a nice little tight pull of the thread, and then step up to the new hole of the SuperDuo. All right, coming out of the SuperDuo, what I want you to do is add in 2 15s. Then you're going to pick up one of your Halo SuperDuos, and the Halo SuperDuos are going to have space that the Halo or the SuperDuos are going to fit in there right easily and nicely. It's going to be easiest if you lay that halo in there first, or the SuperDuo in the halo first, and then sew through the first hole of that bead. Coming out of the halo, add 2 more 15s and sew into the next SuperDuo. Each row we are going to be adding now 3 of our gold SuperDuos and 1 of our halo with our Halo Cerulean color. As you go in and you add the last one here, we're going to step up along the SuperDuo here, going back through the first one, which is our halo bead, going the whole way to the opposite side of the halo. Give it a nice little tight pull, kind of pull that halo down in place. and step up, coming out the other side of that halo. So you're stepping up on the halo bead. Coming out of that halo, go ahead and add 1 15-0. And then when you're ready, what we're going to be doing is creating that spiral and adding the SuperDuos in there. So you have your next whole bag here of your Halo SuperDuos. Again, just 1 seed bead this time. Drop in your seed bead or your SuperDuo there, add it through, and then going through the side that you go through the SuperDuo, you want 2 15-0s. So 1 and then 2. Always between the SuperDuo halos is just going to be 1 little seed bead. Coming out, you're going to have 2. Then again, continue around, adding 3 more of your SuperDuo beads before we do another step up. Once you have those 4 beads in, you're going, before you go back into that original SuperDuo bead right there, what we're going to do is we are going to add 2 of our 15-0s. So through the halo, the 15 and the halo. Coming out the halo here, we're going to step up from 1 hole to the 2nd hole. Now the funky thing with peyote stitches, you go one way and then the other way. So we started last time with a halo bead. This time we're starting with a SuperDuo bead because we're going away from that direction of our diagonal. I still need to add my 2 15s because I'm going next to a SuperDuo. The only time you add 1 is at the connection point between the halo beads, that SuperDuo halo. So 2 15s, go ahead and add in your gold SuperDuos. After your 3 gold SuperDuos, you know it's time to add in your halo bead. And the halo bead will sit then here on the diagonal. So again, I'm coming out through the Aztec gold. I'm going to add 2 of my 15s, pick up my next halo bead, dropping in my SuperDuo, and then I'm going to add 1 15. The reason I'm adding 1 15 rather than 2 is because I'm right at that space where I'm going through the halo bead. Adding on through, go through the halo, through the 2 15s after, and come out through the SuperDuo, which the SuperDuo would be that first bead that I put on in this last row that I added. From here, step up from that bottom hole to the top hole to advance to your next stitch, and then coming through here, it's time to get ready to add in another SuperDuo. SuperDuo gets added. I'm going into a halo bead, so I'm going to add my 2 seed beads, go into the halo and out the other side. Coming out the other side of the halo, I'm going to add 1 15 because I'm getting ready to put another halo on. Add the halo. After the halo, 2 15s. So remember, the only time you're putting 1 15 is when you're between the 2 halo beads. Through that next SuperDuo. That was the second of 4 beads I'm putting on in this row. So I have 2 more to put on. There's 1 SuperDuo. Here's 2 SuperDuos. As I go through that, I'm going to go through the seed bead, or the SuperDuos rather, and advance stepping up through that SuperDuo. Circling around again, you've got a SuperDuo going on between all of the SuperDuos. And then as I come over, getting ready to put my halo in place here, so that way I can continue with that halo and that nice halo spiral that's happening, I'm going to add 2 of my 15s. Then I'm going to pick up one of my halos. And then I'm going into another halo, so I'm just adding 1 15. That's my first couple of beads here in this row. Coming out the SuperDuo halo, 2 15s in a SuperDuo bead. Nice tight pull. So you can see it's going to look like it's starting to spiral in multiple ways because this is almost a Cellini that you're going bigger in the middle. That's why we're using this 2 seed beads versus 1 to hide some of that thread. So go ahead and continue on with this stitch. Continue on the whole about 6 inches of the bracelet. Once you get done the bracelet, what you're going to do, or a necklace, depending on if you're going to seam it through. So you have a couple options once you finish off the design. And when you finish off, you're just going to downgrade. Then again, going back from using all of your SuperDuos and these Halo SuperDuos to just going back to regular SuperDuos to pinch it towards the end. The last row, instead of adding the SuperDuos, you're going to add the 2 seed beads just like we did at the start. You can decide that you want to put some cording through here, and if you put the cord through here, it can just sit just as a nice necklace and have that nice kind of Cellini look to it on it. Or what you can do is add a clasp or a closure. I'm coming out through 2 of my 11 super seed beads, and I'm going to add 2 more seed beads. Skip over the SuperDuo and go right to the next set of 2 seed beads. Again, 2 go on. So still doing basically 2 drop or 2 beads at a time, tubular peyote, adding in 2 of my 11 seed beads. And I have some thread there that I had to tie on in order to do this ending, and just kind of hide that along. Once you get back through the start, just like we've been doing with this whole tubular peyote, step up through those first 2 beads that you just added. Pulling that in then tighter. Again, 2 more beads go around to cap this off. Go through the 2 from the previous row. 2 go on through the 2 from the previous row. And you can choose whether or not you want to use bead caps or you want to do a clasp or a closure. I'm going to put a cup button on and a loop on the other end. After I go through and put the last 2 on in this row, same deal, I'm stepping up through the 2 that my thread was coming out of, as well as the first 2 that I put on. Now what I'm going to do is downgrade. So instead of putting 2 seed beads on, I'm going to put on 1 11 seed bead and go through the next 2 seed beads in line for that tubular peyote. 1 seed bead goes on, go through the next 2 that stick up that you put on in the previous row. It can be helpful sometimes if you need to keep track of what rows that you're doing to use 2 different colors. There, my 1 going on, and you can see by putting in 1, it's changing from using 2 to now using 1 at a time, and that's going to make that center smaller. So what we're doing basically is creating a small circle, which is going to close in the cap. Still stepping up, I'm going to go through that first 11 seed bead that I just added and add 1 more grouping of 11 O's. So 4 more 11 O's go on, and this is going to close this tube even tighter. I'm putting 4 more going through those 4 single 11s that I just did in my last loop. Again, once I have that 4th one in place, I'm going to step up through the first one that I just added. So it's always doing the same thing. This time, instead of doing a shaped bead, we are just doing a nice seed beaded cap to go on the end. Again, if you want to, you can do a regular cap. That's up to you. To finish the close off, I'm going to use my gold 15s and do 1 row of gold 15s around for my final step up. I'm adding in 4 gold 15s in the center of this peyote stitch, which then we're going to attach our button onto. So I'm creating basically a center or small middle row. From here now, step up through that gold bead, forming that little cap there. And now I want you to sew through all of the gold beads without adding any seed beads whatsoever. This is going to turn those gold beads in and bring that focus towards the middle. So you're sewing through all 4 and creating a nice close tube. So there it's going to close it nice and almost into a little diamond or a little square. And that closes up the end of the stitch. Now what I'm going to do is grab my cup button here, and I'm using Aztec Gold since I use the Aztec Gold seed beads. And I'm going to use some 11 O's coming out the back. I'll use some 11 O's in the middle. Actually, what I'll do is I'll put one of these blue beads there right in the middle just to add a little blue at the end. I'm going to add 2 of my 11 O's go up through my cup button, add in my SuperDuo, which is going to fit perfectly in the middle of the cup button, go down through the cup button in the second hole of that SuperDuo, 2 more of my 11-0s go on, and I'm sewing back in across the way. So I'm coming out of one of these gold 15s. I'm going to sew to the opposite side gold 15. That pulls that right there onto the middle. Reinforcing that, I'm going to go back through the next gold all the way around. So I'm coming out at the same place that I was when I came out to do the first 2 of my 11-0s going into the cup button. Reinforce then, going back up through the cup button, up through the SuperDuo, down through the SuperDuo and the cup button. And now the fun part of just sewing back through your stitches, going down through that tubular peyote and tying off the thread ends. So you can go down kind of right along the end here. You can go and actually make a loop, sew through the loop once and twice, making sure that you're not going to see any of the thread, pulling that loop and having that nice tight closure. Again, to get rid of my thread, I'm going to sew down through the peyote stitch a little bit, back into the project, and tie off the extra. The name of the game when you close anything up or when you get rid of thread is that you don't want to see any extra thread in the design, especially with tubular peyote where you tend to see the thread a little bit more. Go in then again, tying off the thread one more time, and then you're just going to burn off with your thread burner the ends that are left. Last thing to do is go to the other side. Instead of making the cup button loop, what you're going to do is make the loop for the cup button to go into. About 38 11-0 seed beads will do it, and then the ending is the exact same. That's going to finish off your Halo Spiral Bracelet. Thanks so much for watching this Halo Spiral Bracelet. Remember, you don't need the halos to do the bracelet. You can just do it plain with super duos or mini duos and play around with some of the other shapes as well. Keep in mind, if you do need any materials, you can check out the links below me in the description of the video to shop with us online. You can also give a little thumbs up, comment below the video and let us know any changes or ideas that you have, as well as subscribe to this YouTube channel. You'll get regular updates from us here at PotomacBeads. Also check out our beading group on Facebook for beading and jewelry making and share your creations there. We love to see them and make the community more interactive. As always, thanks so much for watching everyone and enjoy your Halo Spiral Bracelet.